What is gender dysphoria? It's this buzzword that we hear so much when it comes to trans people. But what is it actually like for somebody who experiences it? So you've probably heard some textbook definition of gender dysphoria, like distress experienced as a result of an incongruence between your sex assigned at birth and your gender identity. And you may be asking, what the fuck does that even mean? I've talked about this stuff before, but I think sometimes I get a little too complex for people who aren't trans or for people who don't know the psychological terminology. I just wanted to share, what does it look like for me to kind of normalize that experience and also paint some context for people who don't experience it, or maybe people that do but aren't sure if that is what they're experiencing. Dysphoria is this thing that so many trans and non-binary people experience. And of course, I'm going to put in that little disclaimer that you don't have to have dysphoria to be trans, because trans identity, non-binary identity, that's about our gender identity. What the doctor says we are at birth, like it's a boy, it's a girl. We may find out later that that wasn't right. At birth, the doctor said I was a boy because I was there and I remember him saying that, like, oh, it's a boy, yay. Totally remember that. I eventually found out, came to realize that, no, I actually got that wrong, doc. I'm a girl. And for me, that process came with a lot of distress, a lot of discomfort that I still experience today in many ways, just because sometimes I don't always feel like my body matches who I am on the inside, and that creates that discomfort. But the reason why you don't have to have dysphoria to be trans is because you can go through that process without that distress. Doesn't happen often. Because you could be like, yeah, the doctor said that, I was a girl at birth, but actually I found out I'm non-binary, and I didn't really have a lot of distress along the way, but I was kind of just like, this identity fits me better. Cool. Moving on with my life. That sort of experience, I feel, is much, much less common, but we don't want to put a negative experience of dysphoria as a requirement to have a certain type of identity. I don't want to get too much into the minutia of gender dysphoria being a requirement and all that. Comment below if you have other questions, and I could do another video to go into that more, but also try to do it in a way that's maybe more approachable than that previous video I did. But for me, to put it in layperson's terms, dysphoria is very much a wave-like experience, like I talked about in that coping video. Some days it's just not there. I go through the whole day feeling great, feeling like myself, and then some days I feel so uncomfortable that I don't even want to leave the house. I don't want people to see me because I don't want to see me. It could be my voice. Like my voice, maybe on some days I feel like, fuck, my voice sounds like a man's voice and I fucking hate that. And I don't want anybody to hear that because I'm afraid somebody will misgender me, say something shitty to me, and all these what ifs pop into my head, and it's just kind of like, oh my god, I'm having anxiety, I'm basically having a panic attack, and I'm feeling so uncomfortable in my body, feeling like who I see on the inside is not who I see on the outside, and it just like spirals. A common one I have is my hair can drive me crazy and make me feel uncomfortable. Like, I sometimes just cannot style it the way I want it to, or it looks shitty, and that is not an invitation to insult my hair. There's just some days where it's just like I can't get it quite right, and it makes me super frustrated, and then I get upset and want to cry. I realize that's an experience a lot of people can have, whether or not you're trans. But there's also that piece for me of being like, I don't like the way this looks because I don't feel it's flattering and feminizing, and sometimes I feel like it's falling in a way that accentuates my male features or some bullshit like that. Sure, there's not always a lot of logic to it because it's a fucking annoying, emotionally distressing experience. As much as I want to be like, hey, you're fine. It's just your hair. My mind's like, yeah, calm down. And my emotions are like, fuck you. My hair is shit. Everybody's going to think I'm a guy. I don't want to leave the house. And it's just that internal conflict, and it's awful. It is so awful. For those of you that have experienced this, you can probably relate. Maybe not necessarily to your hair, but maybe it's discomfort with your body, certain body parts. For me, prior to having my SRS, my dick gave me lots of dysphoria. And it's weird because it's like one of those things. Like when I talk about dysphoria like a wave, huge part of that wave was when I started my transition, where it's just like, okay, I'm finally allowing myself to pay attention to these different parts of my identity then those parts that maybe made me a little uncomfortable before, but I managed to kind of repress it or kind of force myself to be indifferent about, it just starts, the floodgates open, that wave rises, and that discomfort floods in. It's like, now that I'm acknowledging who I am and acknowledging that this is a journey that I need to go on to be myself, those pieces come full force. Hello, penis dysphoria. Hello, tucking that I absolutely hate. That's why some of the biggest reasons I got SRS were not so I could have a vagina that could be fucked. It was because, I mean, that is a reason. Bigger reasons than that are just I want to feel comfortable in my body because that dysphoria is so overpowering. You know, that's a big reason why it got me FFS, and I still have dysphoria about my face. Like, I fucking hate my nose. Like, I feel like my face is long and not as feminine as I'd like to be. And again, as much as I really want to accept that, there's just some days, no matter how hard I try, I feel like shit. I get distressed and anxious, depressed, feeling down. And that's what dysphoria is like. Who I am on the inside, I cannot fully see that person on the outside on that particular day, at that particular moment, and it's so distressing and uncomfortable. There's often not a lot that I can do about it other than just try to ride it out, try to find people that I can talk to help me calm down, to help me kind of just come back, be grounded, feel loved and supported. You know, trying to just find something else to do. Just breathing for a second. Those fears of like, I don't want to go outside because somebody is going to notice this too and say something shitty, that doesn't happen a lot of the time, thankfully, but it happens enough that it's still something in my mind. Being very vigilant about social interactions is something I think a lot of trans people can relate to, where it's just like, I am just waiting for somebody to microaggress me, to say something mean or inappropriate, even if they mean well. I'm just waiting for somebody to say something ignorant. And yeah, I want to rephrase that. I'm not just like waiting like, oh my God, when are they going to do it? But it's kind of that idea in the back of my mind of like, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of when. And for my own self-care, I have to push that back sometimes and be like, it's going to happen eventually, but let me just try to be present, enjoy it, enjoy this life that I'm in right now, in this moment. Those experiences of just people coming up and being like, you know, are you a dude? Oh my God, you're so brave for like doing this thing. And like, thank you. I appreciate you for acknowledging my bravery, for just being my fucking self in the world. But that's not what I need right now. I don't need a complete stranger to come up and basically out me. And all of us can probably relate to those experiences where somebody says something kind of weird and you're not quite sure if it was something shitty. Then you start second guessing, like, did they really say something shitty? Or am I just expecting people to say stuff shitty? That can really up my dysphoria as well too, where it's just like, you know, shitty person says a shitty thing. Or even if they not really sure if they said it, but I think they said it, yeah, it's going to make me feel shitty in that moment. But you know what keeps me going? The fact that despite all of this, I am still by far the happiest I've ever been. Like, I am living my most authentic life. I am me. And that is not something I could say 5, 10, 15 years ago. Like, I was not fully present. I was not fully living my life. Life is fucking hard sometimes as a trans person, but I wouldn't give it up for anything in the world. I wouldn't give up who I am now for anything in the world, because with all these struggles, I am still so happy to live in a world where I can be myself. This world is shit sometimes, but I feel very grateful that I've been able to do this journey and am on the path that I am. Things do get better. We have these moments where things get worse, and then it gets better again. The better these days is so much better than the better 10 years ago. That grammar was awful in that sentence, but you get what I mean. The high points now are much higher than the high points earlier in my life, even with all this dysphoric shit that happens so often. So that's what dysphoria looks like. Well, at least for me. So with that, let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you're comfortable sharing, what are your experiences with dysphoria? In what ways can you relate to the things that I shared? And as always, thank you so much for watching. Tipsy and I love you so very much and hope you're staying safe and healthy. Give this a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you have not already done so. Bye for now.